For those of you joining us via Facebook Live, a word of welcome and thanks to everyone here as well. As we look at today's reading and we think about the prophet Isaiah and his writings, it's easy to get kind of bogged down into the timeline that Isaiah is writing about, because it feels like to us as we read these stories in the Old Testament that things happen very quickly, because there's a whole bunch of books there and we can read them in fairly short order, and it seems like the timelines are fairly short. But in reality, the books of the Old Testament come from a span of hundreds of years. Hundreds and hundreds of years before and up to the time of Christ that these stories take place in. And we seem to condense that down into very short timelines. I think it's probably related to how quickly we access information today. But even 100 years ago, big worldwide events, maybe like World War I, it could take a day or two for headlines to reach from the front lines to the front door. Today, information travels at just under the speed of light, plus a couple of microseconds for the computer to process the web page. Information travels very quickly, and we are used to seeing it and interacting with that information. But in Isaiah's day, it was a little different. Isaiah is writing to a group of people who have been dealing with war and conquest for centuries. And they're tired of it. They have had their homes taken, their land trashed, their way of life shattered over and over and over and over again. And they're tired of it, they're weary, and so they're looking for something. And Isaiah provides it. Isaiah gives them a word of hope. And so it is that we find ourselves in this season of Advent. It's finally here. We've been waiting all year for Advent to arrive, and it's finally here, and so we wait. Wait. What? Wait? Yes. Yes, indeed. Now is the season for doing that thing that we hate. Waiting. Is there anyone here today that likes to wait? Yeah, not very many people like to wait. We hate to wait. We hate waiting in line at the grocery store to check out. We hate waiting in that room that even has a name at the doctor and dentist office. We hate waiting in traffic. We hate all of these things. I was in Omaha the other day, and the traffic on the interstate slowed down to about 40 miles an hour for 3 whole miles. Can you believe that? Have I mentioned that we hate waiting? We hate waiting. And yet, here it is, we find ourselves waiting. What is it that we're waiting for? Therein lies the challenge for us as followers of Christ in this season of Advent. What is it that we are waiting on? All the things that we have going on in December, it can be easy to skip over the reason that we celebrate Christmas. And certainly the birth of Christ is important, but the reason that it is important is what we forget about. We forget about God coming to earth as a human being, God incarnating into Christ, and what all that means for us. At least up until the day before Christmas Eve. Then we start remembering why it is that we're celebrating the birth of Christ. But with all the things we have to do, with all the lists of presents that must be bought, the pile of presents that have been bought that need to be wrapped, and some of those that have been wrapped that need to be sent. We have to plan menus. We have to plan schedules. We have to buy groceries. And if you're a pastor or worship planner, you have to plan Lent. Because Ash Wednesday is on February 14th, and January is too late to start that stuff. All these things are distractions. Distractions from what it is that we're doing this season. They get in the way of our thinking about God and what God did in Jesus Christ. Incarnation. the actual indwelling of God into an actual human being. That's the crux of this season. It's an odd concept, this incarnation business. We talk about incarnation, but it's an odd concept. Resurrection, we get that. Good Friday, dead. Easter Sunday, alive. Resurrection, we get it. Incarnation is a little more vague. It's a little more, I don't know. It's hard to get your hands around something that's that intangible. And yet, incarnation is a critical aspect of our theology, of our faith life. Because if God doesn't come and experience our lives as we experience them, if God doesn't come and experience our joys and our sadnesses, if God doesn't experience our rejoicing and our lamenting, if God doesn't experience our death, we cannot experience life. And so incarnation is the key to all of that. God fully experienced everything in Christ's death and in Christ's life. And because God did, we will. And that's a key thing. And so we wait. And so we wait. Or try to. Except for Christmas decorations. We can't wait to get them up, and we can't wait to get them down the day after Christmas. And really, in the age of instant everything, why practice waiting? If I can get it right now, why shouldn't I? What is the purpose? What is the reason? Why in the world bother with waiting? Why practice waiting? Is there some purpose to waiting other than torturing us mercilessly for unspecified reasons? Yes, there is. And it's the same encouragement that Isaiah was giving his people. They struggled with war and conquest over long periods of time. Certainly not what they wanted. In our time, we don't always get what we want when we want either, do we? If we don't occasionally practice waiting, what happens when we don't get what we want when we want it? When we have to wait too long, we give up. Giving up on waiting in line at the grocery store and abandoning your cart is one thing. Giving up on waiting in the waiting room of the doctor's office, the dentist's office, and making an appointment for another day is one thing. Giving up on waiting on the interstate, taking a different route, is one thing. But when we give up on faith, that's a whole other thing altogether. And so the season of Advent, we practice waiting. We are waiting with great anticipation to celebrate the birth of Christ, the incarnation of God into human form in the person of Jesus Christ. The waiting helps remind us that even when we don't get what we want right away, we still hold on to the hope that Christ will indeed come. I mean, we're people of faith. Faith in something we cannot see. Faith in something we cannot touch. Yet we still hold on to the hope that Christ is truly present with us. Yet we still hold on to the hope that the one who came to save us, the one who God incarnated into, will come once again and claim each one of us as his own in Christ's kingdom. We have already been named and claimed. We have already been saved. But the kingdom, Christ's kingdom, has not yet come. And so we wait. We wait in hope. Thanks be to God. Amen. I should please stand as you're able and continue worship in song.